End. I came here on a sheet of sandpaper. It was a bit of a rough ride. This bloke said to me, he said, "Do you think there's life on Mars?" I said, "Well, there's a couple of wasps around the wrapper." In case you don't know, Mars is a chocolate or brand of chocolate in the UK. Church singers, they're an acquired taste. Okay, I might need. So let me read that again. Church singers, they're an church singers, they're an acquired taste. Last night, I had a dream someone was saying, "On your marks, get set, go." I woke up with a start. Oh yes, I'm back with another round of the biggest ever Tim Vine joke book. No comment. Okay, let's go. I met a grumpy American. He was a Missouri Guts. So I saw this sad man in a refuse tip. He was down in the dumps. I met a leech. He was buying a Valentine's card. He was a sucker for romance. This bloke said to me, he said, "I'm going to be a chimney sweep." I said, "Suit yourself." Spelled S-O-O-T. I saw a bull rush in a library. I thought, that looks like a good read. God. My favourite band is called the Cockles and Mussels. I saw them alive, oh, in concert. That's a reference to a song, isn't it? I can't think what it is. Someone can, if you know, let me know. So I rang up the fire brigade. I said, "My pet sparrow is stuck up a tree." He said, "Sparrows are supposed to live in trees." I said, "Not Ian." Sorry, it took me a moment. So I took up arable farming, but I came at a cropper. This bloke kept hitting me with poultry. I got goosebumps. This bloke said to me, he said, "Do you want to scrape both your knees?" He was a double grazing salesman. Now, no comments about the fact I'm Chinese and I pronounce it grazing, not glazing. This bloke said to me, he said, "Shall we talk about diaries?" I said, "Let's." That's spelled L-E-T-T-S. The fact that you have to explain the joke makes it worse. So I said to this bloke, I said, "Can you take my pulse?" And he ran off with my lentils. So I went to the Natural History Museum. I said, "Have you got the bones of Diplodocus?" He said, "No, I'm just wearing new shoes." So I said to this bloke, I said, "I'm going to North Africa." He said, "Tanzania?" I said, "If I don't wear a hat, I'll tan both of them." Oh dear. Okay, so this bloke said to me, he said, "You look like a medieval string instrument." I said, "Are you calling me a liar?" I said, "Do you like my shirt? It's covered in pictures of cactuses." He said, "Cacti?" I said, "Never mind the tie. What do you think of the shirt?" So I was playing the piano in a bar and an elephant walked in. As I was playing, he started crying his eyes out. I said, "Do you recognise the tune?" He said, "No, I recognise the ivory." I went to the head office of the RSPCA today. It's absolutely tiny. You couldn't swing a cat in there. Today I had dinner with my boss and his wife and it was a complete disaster. My boss's wife said to me, "How many potatoes would you like?" I said, "I'll just have one." She said, "It's alright, you don't have to be polite." I said, "Alright then, I'll just have one, you stupid cow." I entered a competition putting sails on boats. It was rigged. So I went down the local hotel and I said, "Can you put me up?" And he nailed me to the ceiling. I've got a friend who puts plaster of Paris on my face, waits for it to dry, and then hits it with a chisel. He cracks me up. Ground sheets. They don't get much coverage. I've got a gun made out of a dozen pigs. It's a 12 bore. This bloke said to me, he said, "Why have you got manure on your head?" I said, "I've just had my hair done." What has lots of legs and a machine gun? A caterpillar. Whenever I'm in Italy, I become a rickety old table. I guess I'm just a hopeless Rome antique. My granddad was a film actor a very long time ago. He was a star of the bronze screen. ... dash dash dash. I really regret that. Remorse code. After I've had an argument, I sometimes hold a hoover over my head. It helps clear the air. The other day I sat on a hairdryer. That put the wind up me. So I was lying in a bath of meths, and my girlfriend rang up and said she was lying in a bath of paraffin. I said, "I'm with you in spirit." Why couldn't the bicycle stand up by itself? It was too tired. What did one hat say to the other? "Stay here, I'm going on ahead." Oh God. Why did Billy get fired from the banana factory? He kept throwing away the bent ones. "Dad, can you put my shoes on?" "No, I don't think they'll fit me." That's not so much a dad joke as a reply to someone, isn't it? Why can't a nose be 12 inches long? Because then it would be a foot. What does a lemon say when it answers the phone? "Yellow." Here we go, final one then. This graveyard looks overcrowded. People must be dying to get in. I thought Tom Cruise was a boating holiday for male cats. Oh, I went to a posh party and everyone was drinking and knitting. I got pins and needles. I'm on a seabed diet. If I see a bed, I eat it. That's silly. Frozen apples, they're hardcore. Whenever I wash up, I get covered in soapy bubbles. It's Sud's Law. My local village was destroyed by toilet paper. Everyone was wiped out. So I was in the party shop with my granny. She said, "This kaleidoscope's rubbish." I said, "That's a balloon pump." So I saw this dolphin serial killer. It was Jack the Flipper. Where do you learn to make a banana split? Sunday school. What has more letters than the alphabet? A post office. Dad, did you get a haircut? No, I got them all cut. Where do boats go when they're sick? to the boat dock. I don't trust those trees, they seem kind of shady. My wife is really mad at the fact that I have no sense of direction, so I packed up my stuff and... Right. What? How do you get a squirrel to like you? Acts like a nut. Oh dear. Today I went shoplifting while balanced on the shoulders of a group of vampires. I was done for theft on 4 counts. People with guns who say give me your money, you've got to hand it to them. I was a terrible builder. When the foreman said to me, have you got a plumb line? I said, the one I usually use is, have you got a plum? So I went to my GP and said, I feel like I've been hit on the head by a set of bongos. He said, you've probably got slight percussion. He said, you're turning into an airport. I said, is it terminal? He said, antiseptic? I said, I've got nothing against the Jews. Oh dear. Do you ever get that when you're halfway through eating a horse and you think to yourself, I'm not as hungry as I thought I was? I've got a horse called Treacle. He's got golden stirrups. I saw a bulrush in a library. I thought, that looks like a good read. I met a leech who was buying a Valentine's card. He was a sucker for romance. This bloke said to me, he said, I'm going to be a chimney sweep. I said, suit yourself. So I rang up the fire brigade. I said, my pet sparrow is stuck up a tree. He said, sparrows are supposed to live in trees. I said, not Ian. So I took up arable farming, but I came at a cropper. This bloke said to me, he said, do you want to scrape both your knees? He was a double grazing salesman. Now, no comments about the fact I'm Chinese and I pronounced it grazing, not glazing. So I went to the petrol station. I said, fill her up. When I came back, he was stuffing my wife's face with cream cakes. Oh dear. This turkey challenged me to a fight. He threw down the giblet. I saw this angry Veruca. He was on the walked path. Oh dear. So I went on a date and all we talked about was wooden leg extensions. The conversation was stilted. I'm looking for a house at the moment. It's my house. I've forgotten where I live. I spent the whole of today pruning. I was just chucking prunes at people. Don't do that. Unless you can run faster than them. So I was on this train. I said, I don't think much of this bunk bed. He said, that's the luggage rack. This bloke said to me, he said, do you ever talk off the top of your head? I said, no, halfway down at the front. I went on holiday with my horse. It was self-cantering. Oh dear. So I said to this bloke, I said, when I was on holiday, I stayed in a bed and breakfast. He said, half bored. I said, no, I was totally bored. I was a rubbish church window cleaner. I got rid of all the stains. This bloke said to me, he said, shall we talk about diaries? I said, let's. That's spelled L-E-T-T-S. So, the first one. My girlfriend is covered from head to toe in grass. Her name's Lorna. Oh dear God. Okay. Me and my mum don't get on. We never argue, but if a bus stops in front of us, we don't get on. Okay. Okay, next one. My uncle's mad because he wears a wiggly jacket, whereas my auntie, she wears a straight jacket. I entered a competition putting sails on boats. It was rigged. So I went down the local hotel and I said, "Can you put me up?" And he nailed me to the ceiling. I've got a friend who puts plaster of Paris on my face, waits for it to dry, and then hits it with a chisel. He cracks me up. My horse, he doesn't go out much. He's a Shire horse. So I went to the hair salon and my dad's sister came in spinning round in circles. I thought, oh my giddy aunt. So I said to this bloke, I said, I'm going to Buckingham Palace to do Prince Philip's hair. He said, have you got a permit? I said, no, I've just got to take a bit off the back. I said, do you like my shirt? It's covered in pictures of cactuses. He said, cacti? I said, never mind the tie. What do you think of the shirt? So I was playing the piano in a bar and an elephant walked in. As I was playing, he started crying his eyes out. I said, do you recognise the tune? He said, no, I recognise the ivory. Why don't eggs tell jokes? They'd crack each other up. I don't trust stairs, they're always up to something. What do you call someone with no body and no nose? Nobody knows. Did you hear the rumour about butter? Well, I'm not going to spread it. I need a drum kit. Why couldn't the bicycle stand up by itself? It was too tired. What did one hat say to the other? Stay here, I'm going on ahead. Oh God. Why did Billy get fired from the banana factory? He kept throwing away the bent ones. Dad, can you put my shoes on? No, I don't think they'll fit me. This bloke said to me, he said, I once got my dog to retrieve a stick from 100 miles away. I said, that's a bit far-fetched. I don't like my hands. I always keep them at arm's length. Okay. Number 3. This reporter said to me, he said, how would you describe the absence of Halley's flaming meteorite? I said, no comment. I'm amazed how many people go to Ascot when it's windy. Still, hats off to them. Me and my brother inherited some furniture from the local zoo. I'm glad to say I got the lion's chair. In 2002, the Queen had been on the throne for 50 years. Would you believe it? This bloke said to me, he said, are you a high flyer? I said, no, I tend to hand out flyers at waist level. I went to the haberdashery, I was looking for a cheap frill. I went down the local opticians. I said, have you got a contact lens solution? He said, what about laser surgery? I fell in love with a clumsy cleaner. She swept me off my feet. I saw a coconut flavoured biscuit playing football. It was Wayne Macaroni. So I went to the chemist. I said, give me some rat poison. He said, I'm sorry sir, but we only sell things to unblock your nose. I said, I know that, but I've got a rat up my nose. Okay. This bloke said to me, he said, I live in the sky with a Swiss clock. I said, you're in cloud cuckoo land. I once tried to hang myself with a clip-on tie. Broke both my legs. I used to file my nails, but then I thought, what's the point in keeping them? Exit signs, they're on the way out. Black Beauty, he's a dark horse. So I went down the local department store